Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. In every argument, the first rule is to never let your opponent set the terms of the debate. That's basic. But when it comes to reparations, there is no argument. The issue was settled hundreds of years ago, and it's never gone away. Reparations is a grassroots issue. That's who's keeping it alive, and that's what makes it so dangerous. The only reason anyone's talking about reparations is because the black street has kept that issue alive and won't let it die. All the naysayers and the people who roll their eyes and say, just give it up, these are Negroes who want to keep white power happy. Well, that ain't us. Though it is your bootlick class like the fools you see on white media cable TV. From Roly-Poly to Don Lemonade, the old, decrepit, pathetic bootlicks are having to talk like us in order to have any semblance of credibility or just to get anyone to even notice them. We're the only ones saying anything relevant, and they know it. Earlier this week, you had Tiffany Cross-Eyes and Roly-Poly Martin working together, both of them trying to pretend like they had something relevant to say when it came to black voters, particularly black male voters, and the 2022 midterms. Roly-Poly pretending to be acting like he's speaking for what black men have been saying. By the way, does anyone remember Roly-Poly sticking up for the black male opinion in 2016 when he was dancing with Hillary Clinton? Does anyone remember the night after she lost, Roly-Poly on his webcam, looking like he was ready to slit his own wrists? Anyone remember him saying, well, Hillary, do you know black men, if you look at how the black male vote's been trending the last couple of elections, it's pretty obvious that Barack Obama and your refusal to even say what you're going to do for black folks, it's obvious that was the problem. No, he wasn't. And all the black men who were saying, here's the problem, Roly-Poly was the main one cursing and screaming and being profane and trying to shout us down, not that anyone was listening to him. So the bootlicks have been trying in vain to dictate black people's opinions to them, and it hasn't been working. And now you got Don Lemonade. He's decided he's going to mention reparations to a member of the British royal family, no less. And predictably, being the bunch of career racists that they are, these guys were the ones who made slavery a global business. Of course, this idiot blames the Africans. And there's no attempt by Lemonade to point out that the Africans didn't tackle the Europeans on Africa's beaches and demand that they enslave anyone. The Europeans came to the Africans and started making deals with a few turncoats. But of course, Lemonade ain't doing that. He's not going to stick up for that because he wasn't doing advocacy, not for us. Though he was doing advocacy for himself, he's trying to raise his own pathetic profile. What with him being demoted to a morning TV show on CNN, he managed to survive the purge at the network, though barely. And now he's just trying to hang on. See, reparations isn't going away. And the white media has failed to contain it. So what they're trying to do now is they're trying to see if they can manufacture a phony argument right alongside the real advocacy that we've been doing. And because of their widespread media reach, they're hoping that more people are going to be seeing this. At least they can muddy the waters a little bit. Well, reparations cannot and will not be allowed to be held hostage to white supremacists who either attempt to rewrite the history like the British royal family or trash like the GOP in Florida and Texas who are trying to just get rid of the history altogether. Don Lemonade didn't attempt to defend the very position that he himself brought up, and he did that under orders. The entire point of his little stunt was to give a phony win to anti-black racists who would then say, see, Don Lemonade, he asked about reparations, and when that white woman said, blame the Africans, he didn't have anything to say. That was deliberate. Scripted. Now we see why CNN still has this moron on the payroll. For now, at least. Well, in a way, you really can't blame Don Lemonade that much. If he wasn't working for CNN, where the hell would he be at? Probably keeping Roly-Poly company in that broom closet of his. Because God knows the grassroots wouldn't feed either one of those chumps. Roly-Poly himself has been getting money from the U.S. government. Hell, even the griot was forced to have to report on that. Roly-Poly got $250,000 from the U.S. Census in 2020. Keep in mind, that was when Trump was in office. So Roly-Poly getting caked off with the orange man in office. You wonder how this moron's able to have his little broom closet broadcast? Who the world's paying for his butter biscuits? Because he doesn't have any grassroots support? Ain't nobody watching him. The grassroots dang sure is not watching him or supporting him. So how the hell is he able to even do anything? It's because the U.S. government pays his bills. Roly-poly is a certified tool. And that's the reason why you see them constantly telling lies about what the black community says, and they're sitting here trying to misdirect or muddy the waters or otherwise try to confuse our internal politics. This is what the bootlicks have to do. They have to keep white supremacists happy by kissing their behinds, either at a corporation or the U.S. government. But nonetheless, you still see the roly-poly is steadily begging the DNC. Y'all's messaging is off. You need to advertise with the black-owned media. This fool, every time you see him on TV, is always begging for a consulting job. It reminds me of Jamila LaPuke and her little buddy when they were on the Breakfast Schlubs. And here they were, begging for a radio job. But Don Lemonade's deliberate softball to a royal racist, that wasn't the only incident where the white media is trying to push the narrative that, well, reparations, there's no basis for it. USA Today just posted a story saying that black people don't think that they'll get reparations. And then USA Today claims, with no evidence, that black people in the Northeast are more likely to say the legacy of racism significantly impacts black people compared to the South or the Midwest. They don't even bother to mention black folks in the West. Forget about Midwest alone. This is just them saying something and wondering if you'll fall for it. More likely, these are completely and thoroughly unqualified statements, but this is a piece meant to totally misrepresent black people's true stance on the issues. White media trying to muddy the waters, confuse the issue. Keep in mind, the same USA Today was among the white media outlets writing stories saying that stop and frisk wasn't hurting Mike Bloomberg's support during his failed presidential run back in 2020. Oh, black voters didn't have a problem with stop and frisk. Stop and frisk wasn't hurting Bloomberg's support among black voters. That's what the same USA Today lying about reparations and lying about black people's support for it, that's what they were saying just 2.5 years ago. And then a few weeks after USA Today was posting that crap, Bloomberg dropped out of the race because black parishioners in the Deep South in Alabama at Brown Chapel AME Church stood up and turned their backs on him. See, Bloomberg was the mayor in a northeastern city with policies that were harming black folks in the Northeast. But it was black folks in the Deep South. I'm talking about so far doggone Deep South, you wouldn't need further south, you have to speak Spanish. And yet it was black folks down in Alabama who were the ones who killed his presidential campaign. Yeah, it seems to me that black folks understand full well that racism significantly impacts black folks. But it's the white media who gets some dark-skinned bootlick, some dark-skinned sock puppet to try to tell you, oh, well, you can't claim that this coverage is racist. We got a black person here who's selling the soap for us and telling blatant lies. It's just a bunch of comfort food for racists, that's what this is. But we're not fooled. We will not have the people who only showed up a few days ago tell us, whose blood, sweat, and tears built the country they fled to, what we're owed. They had nowhere to go, and we made a place for them to go, created the world's strongest economy. And then when they got here, they turned around and told black folks how hard they worked. Oh, we're supposed to be ashamed of demanding justice for the greatest crime in human history because they don't like it. We should feel guilty for demanding the scales finally be balanced. Well, I'm not, and neither should you. Every other group is bold about demanding things for nothing. White multi-billion-dollar corporations demand and get subsidies and government money simply because they want it. Brett Favre is in the middle of a scandal right now because he got welfare money from the state of Mississippi from Republicans, no less. And then Favre funneled that money to his daughter's volleyball stadium. All the while, the same Brett Favre loves to lecture folks about the need for hard work and pull yourself up by your bootstraps, etc., etc. And yet here this guy is. He's the freaking welfare king of Mississippi. And these are the people who tell you and me that we aren't owed anything and that we just want money for nothing. You know, you people should feel guilty for what y'all are demanding. Well, we don't. No guilt at all, not on our part. The guilt is with this country and everyone who benefited from our enslavement and our perpetual oppression ever since. and who today have the gall to tell us to get over it. It was a long time ago, or they just lie and deny and that they even did in the first place. And a white media putting out pathetic propaganda to try to prop up the argument that black folks really shouldn't be getting anything, that there's something wrong with it because we're the ones making the demand. Black interests are the only interests that are ever divisive. Nobody ever says that, well, Democrats better not push abortion because that could split the Democratic Party-based voters. Well, if the Democrats push abortion, why, that could drive casual racists, read white moderates, away. No, they say the opposite. They say, well, this is just catnip for those white suburbanites, especially white suburban women. Same thing with gay rights. Nobody says that Democrats can't mention that because it would split the base or alienate certain segments of voters that Democrats want. Same with illegal immigration. Nothing is ever such a hot-button third rail of politics issue that it cannot be brought up, except for anything that pertains to black people. If it's going to benefit black people, if it's something that we're in favor of, then the white media narrative is that it's political suicide. It will drive away voters. Nobody will back it. It's too controversial. It's probably not even legal. Democrats will lose elections, and that's why they're smart for not doing it, and black folks just need to accept that. That's the white media narrative. There's not even an attempt to look at whether or not it could be a winning issue. The so-called white leftist media led the charge to attack defunding the police. They had sellouts like Negro Jim Clyburn, America's favorite sharecropper. They gave him a platform so he could rant and yell that slogans kill people. Stop sloganizing. Slogans kill people. Yeah, because apparently Nigga Jim thinks that the police don't. This is propaganda coming from our enemies, from a white media who's afraid. And they're afraid because they see that more and more black people are not. We're speaking up for ourselves, and we don't care who doesn't like it or how they try to dismiss it or discredit it. We're not looking for approval, and that scares them. This sick white system has money to give the banks over $1 trillion. Banks who didn't even need it. They have money for Asian businesses, money for COVID relief for cities and corporations, money for Ukraine, money to pay white college students' debts, money for everything, except for the people who built this country. We have to make it clear, we're not asking for what's ours. We're taking it. We're taking the money that we're owed, with applicable interest. We're taking credit for what we created and contributed to this country and to the world, which is everything worthwhile about it. We're taking our security and our future into our own hands. The only thing we're not taking is no for an answer. Good day. And be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Josh Heath, Wesley Monroe, Imani Metajani, Maurice Soul, and Brenda McPherson. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.